and welcome to another episode of the Choose Strong podcast. I am your host, Sally McRae. Very happy that you are here with us today. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing wonderful, as always. How you doing?
Doing
How
good.
you doing?
Got a cup of coffee. We went out to breakfast this morning after the gym, and it was like 50-mile-per-hour swirling wind. And you said I was going to run today, but not in this wind.
Not
and
in
I thought,
this wind, I'm not.
were you actually going to run today? Or is that just,
Yeah, I wasn't going to run, actually.
I mean, we did go to the gym this morning.
Yes.
In fact, Eddie was there to spot me. This is the first time in a while I've needed a spot, Ed.
Yeah, you were cranking on some of those weights. That was impressive.
I was cranking.
That
I was
was
very
impressive.
excited to pick up the 45-pound dumbbells today for my bench press. I like the dumbbells. I don't
press?
use the bar. The dumbbell press.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Not using the bar.
Have
but
you worked up to that like recently, or are you just kind of?
I have.
Yeah.
You know, I still remember when I remember this very well, when I was just pressing 25-pound dumbbells. Now, when I worked at the sports and movement trainer, my good buddy Steve Newman,
Mm-hmm.
who has a really cool program here in Orange County, he would have me do a lot of dumbbell work. And one of the cool things that you can do with dumbbells, especially like on a bench, is you can really focus on engaging your core when you're not stable. And that's actually why I like to do it. So a lot of times I'll do, I'll lie back on my back and I'll put those dumbbells up and I'll leave one up and just press one at a time. And really what that is doing, it's forcing me to stabilize my core.
Mm-hmm.
And as a runner, that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've been trying to work up to heavier weight. And as I discussed in the last episode, building strength is really important to me in the off season, but it's also fun. I really love to lift, and I like to see if I can get a little bit stronger in the off season. Cause I know for me personally, like what I want to do next year, like once I plug in that run program, the strength training continues. It just looks different. And
Mm-hmm.
I won't be lifting as heavy for as long, as frequently throughout the week. So right now is where I'm starting to build that foundation, put on some muscle weight, and really just assess where my weaknesses are. But it is fun still to have goals. I think that keeps me motivated in the gym. And, for a long time, I was at 25 pounds. I use that a lot, actually. 25-pound dumbbells was always just my go-to. And
How long ago was that? Like,
it was a couple years ago. It was just like, that's just the standard. That's what it's always a 25-pound dumbbell. And then there was other things I would do, standing exercises on one leg. I always use 15 pounds. And I know that if I want to change and get stronger, like it's really important that I'm always challenging myself. So pretty soon, like if I'm doing 25-pound dumbbells, I'm pressing that and I'm doing 12, 15 reps at a time, like easily.
time to up the weight.
Yeah, it's not doing anything anymore. And I know that as a woman, sometimes it's, we get a little nervous about the heavier weights, mainly because of a lot of the, conflicting messages that are out there. I know some women do get scared of lifting heavy weight because they don't want to get big.
Mm.
And man, I personally do put weight on a little bit easier, I'd say, than probably the average woman. I've been like that my entire life. I've always been muscular. Even when I was tiny, like I was pretty petite until I was 16 years old. That's when I started growing. But like I always was kind of strong and defined. Like you always could see muscle on me. And so I know that I put on that muscle easily, but I also have, when I start training for the longer distances and just seeing my body go through massive breakdown when I did the Grand Slam of the 200s, it's hard work to put it on.
Yeah.
And it's hard work for it to stay when I'm, running 100, 120, 140 miles a week. So it's as I've moved through my career, I've really paid attention to how my body is, how it builds, how it breaks down, what I need. And so the past couple years that has kind of been my goal. Like, how much muscle can I put on? Like, what is, how strong can I get? And it feels so good to be strong. It feels so good to lift heavy weight. And so I moved on from the 25 pound to the 30, and then 35. I was super stoked when I could do 35. And then I was like, I remember one day, in the gym, and one of these days I want to contact, the big guys who own these gyms and say, hey, you need to provide more 20, 30, and 35 pound weights.
Yeah.
That's like, if I can just sum up what everyone's grabbing for, that's like the guys and girls, we want those. And we're using them for all different, you see a lot of girls, they'll deadlift with the 30s, right? Or they'll do like the one, Bulgarian squat, and they're holding the 30 pound. And you see the guys very easily just curling 35, 40 pound or whatever. But do we really need 100 pound dumbbells?
Yeah, the 120s down at the end aren't really getting touched.
They're so dusty.
Every once in a while, you'll see someone,
but like
it's
the
rare.
90s, the 80s, the 70s, the heaviest I go is 65 pound, and that's for a row. I'll row with those, but that's my max. I'm doing like 3-4 reps on those, and then I'm done. But come on, like let's get a few more 30, 35, 40 pound dumbbells on there. But yeah, so what happened, the only reason why I moved up to 35 pound, I remember, was because there was no 30 pound dumbbells. And this had happened multiple days in the gym. And finally I was like, screw it.
It's a sign.
I'm gonna grab a 35 pound dumbbell and let's just see what happens. And then I thought, why don't I just keep doing that? So
after you hit 35, you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
I was feeling strong.
A little extra flex in the mirror.
A little flex in the mirror. And now today I was like, you know what, I'm going to do 45s, but I would call it a higher rep. Okay. 10 reps is solid,
yes,
for 45 pounds,
really
3 sets. And here's the thing, friends. I know there's this hybrid athlete title out there. It's growing rapidly. A lot of people talk about it. I think there's a lot of different definitions and ideas about what a hybrid athlete is. I mean, I've been lifting weights my entire life, along with running.
I would say most athletes are hybrid athletes.
I would say across all sports.
Like 99% of athletes
right?
are hybrids.
If you play tennis or basketball and lift weights, you're hybrid.
Yep.
If you're a swimmer, you're hybrid. I mean, I would probably call most people that. But there's kind of like a messaging around it right now where it's running and then like lifting, and people are like, you can do both. You've always been able to do both. Personally, the way that I train both of those, I think when I first came into endurance running, I had a lot of coaches because I would sit in coaching certification classes for a couple years, and I would talk about strength training, and I would get the side eye from everyone. And they would either say, and this is like 10, 15 years ago, they would either say, no, the only thing that my runners lift are 5 pound weights, or they're doing body weight stuff, which I understand the science and the study behind that. I get it, right? But I also think that there is a time and a season for heavy lifting, especially the older you get, and depending on what events you're doing in running. So, you look at like sprinters, okay, they're very different category. They're explosive, they're powerful. They are doing a lot of like that heavy stuff. But then you look at people that are running 100 and even these 200 miles, you want to build a strong and enduring body. You need to be lifting weights. The breakdown is massive. For once you turn 30, we start to lose muscle mass. Our metabolism starts to drop. You have to lift weights to maintain what you had when you were in your teens and your 20s. And then every decade, the older you get, man, you're losing that stuff really fast. And so I've always just lifted weights, and I do it in different phases throughout the year. But even the way that I train in the gym, the way that I even rest in between these sets, Eddie, you got it on video today, but I kind of showed him, I know there's lots of ideas about what hybrid training looks like. I think the way that I do it is probably very different than a lot that's out there, a lot that people are seeing.
What do you mean?
Well, today, for example, so I want to do those 45, like that chest press. So in my mind, and in this, again, I know it's unconventional. It's not popular. Okay. I'm not saying this is what everyone needs to do, but I do those hard presses, 45 pounds, 10 reps. I immediately stand up. I grab two 25-pound plates. And I go and do 30 walking lunges. I go straight back to the bench, pick up those 45-pound dumbbells, press those 10 times, stand right back up, and go back and do 30 more weighted walking lunges. That, my friends, is how I hybrid train. It is to be strong and enduring when you are tired. It is testing the body to see how strong it can be when you feel weak and tired. Now, is that every single day? No. Could I probably lift heavier and more if I didn't do that? Yeah, probably. But the thing is, I want to be able to run up the mountain at mile 88, strong, enduring, and confident in a body that is so tired at mile 88, because that's how I trained. So there's a lot of different workouts that I do, and they're very, very specific. Now, sometimes I do go into the gym and I'm like, this is like my max day. I'm going to see how I can max out. I'm just going to be strong. And I do give myself the 60-second rest, the 90-second rest, the 2-minute rest. Really depends on what it is I'm doing. There's also Metcon style where you only get like 20 to 30 seconds rest in between, and you're moving high reps, light to medium weight, like quick. It almost feels like an interval workout. So there are so many different ways that we can weight train. My focus has always been on how can I be strong and enduring in the mountains, period.
Yeah.
Not just what is this one marathon road race that I'm training for? Not, oh, I wonder if I can run and lift at the same time. Is that a thing? Not, can I keep this muscle? It's like, I want to be strong and enduring, period. So I will share more on that later. But if you are in my app and you're trying to figure out how to do strength training and running, how you combine those two, there are plans in there that I show you how to do it. But a lot of it is all starting with body weight and very light dumbbells and bands, because I'm a big believer in building a strong foundation, and you don't need heavy weights to do that. I think that you have to build up to the heavy weights. We see so many people injured because they just go right into this. I need to deadlift heavy and I need to do this heavy. And I used to work for a sports PT that was like, I love this CrossFit stuff because it gives us so much business. And it was the same thing when zero drop shoes came out. Those like the toe shoes and even the ultra shoes that are zero drop. People didn't understand there needs to be a transition. You need to build up the muscles in your feet. Your body has to get used to having zero cushion and engaging those plantar muscles in your feet, or else you're going to get injured. So
the zero drop, the Metcon shoes?
Yes, Metcon shoe. Well, those are legit weightlifting shoes. I wouldn't run in those. But
so what's the difference between
like
that
Ultra, for example, that's a zero drop shoe. So most shoes, there is a difference between the heel stack.
Mm-hmm.
You'll kind of have like a cushion, like this big cushiony shoes. So with zero drop shoes, there isn't any heel stack. It's just as if you're barefoot, which in my opinion, if you do have a lot of injuries, if you are trying to strengthen your lower legs, your feet. I mean, this is why running in the grass is so good, running barefoot. You see a lot of like high school and college athletes will do that. They'll train, they'll do their workout. And then part of their cool down is doing laps on the field barefoot.
Yeah.
That strengthens your feet. That helps with all those incredible plantar muscles in your feet. That's really, really good. And a lot of times, I actually took a class on this. I was part of my coaching certification. We talked all about shoes and how the simplest way to explain shoes in our everyday world, which we don't live in, most of us don't live in communities where we walk around barefoot.
Right.
Most of us, we live in an area where there's glass and rocks and, things you don't want to step on. You kind of need shoes to protect your feet. Also, the skin on our feet is not toughened up and strong enough to withstand walking around all day barefoot. It takes time to build up toughness in the skin and the calluses and all of that. And so this idea of, as time has gone on, we put our feet into a nice soft shoe. And the way that this doctor had explained it to the class was like, in a way, it's like what happens when your arm goes into a cast after it's been broken. You have like that muscle atrophy. It gets a little weak, and when it comes out, it looks a little bit smaller. You got to re-strengthen it. It's got to build back up. Got to build that muscle back up. And so when you take an athlete who's been running in an ultra cushiony shoe with an 8 to 10 millimeter drop, and then you immediately throw them into let's say an ultra shoe, all of theirs are zero drop. You throw them into that's not going to feel good because they are not used to needing to use the muscles because they've been nice and covered and cushioned. And so what you typically want an athlete to do, let's say if they go from a really cushiony shoe to an ultra shoe, is you say, all right, this week run in it twice. And start your run with it. Start like running in it for like 10 to 20 minutes and then go into your old shoes. And then the next week, you're going to run in it 3 times and you're going to run in it for 15 minutes. And it usually takes about 3 weeks before you can safely move into like a zero drop shoe. And it's purely based on getting your feet stronger and used to that positioning in the shoe, that zero drop.
The Hokas, I've never worn them, but they have that huge.
Yeah.
Is that not good for someone's foot or what?
No, I think Hokas. I remember having some Hokas years back. I think it was like 2011.
They look really comfortable. I just never.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I know a lot of people rely on those, especially in 100 and 200 mile races. It just feels like you have pillows on your feet, right?
Yeah.
And it has been so long since I've even picked one up. But if I remember right, I don't think the heel drop is that intense, even though it looks like like your foot big. Sits inside it, and I think it's only like a 4 to 5 millimeter drop. And their shoes have changed so much. I mean, they have all different types of shoes now. For a while, it was just the big Smurf looking like shoe, but their shoes have changed, quite a bit. But anyway, I don't even know how we got started on this. We were talking about my gym workout, and we didn't even really say hi to our listeners or anything like that. But I know a lot
before
of
we
this
say
is
hi,
go into.
I'm thinking you can push 55s now. If you did 45s, 8 to 10, I think you're ready for the 55s.
With no rest and going right in. Okay, we'll see. We'll have to film that.
Let's go tomorrow.
We can put the video up of what you shot today. Okay. Of me doing 45s. I did. Eddie is so gracious when I go to the gym with him. He was on the other side of the room, which a lot of times we make faces at each other.
No,
we do. It's actually like I love going to the gym with you, Eddie, because we make faces at each other, and we both like we'll flex in the mirror at each other. I
get half done.
You do get half done.
Half the workout done.
And this is what I was going to bring up. I was going to bring that up because I feel like, and if you can hear our dog Bear,
let's be quiet.
Barking,
We're trying to podcast
you might hear
here.
him. I mean, our microphones are pretty good. You might not be able to hear him, but it's okay. It's okay. Eddie was so gracious to come over and spot me. I was like, I think I need you to spot me for this. I really want to do it well.
You made those things look light
and Eddie's
work.
Always good about critiquing my form too. He's done that many times, and he'll tell me that didn't count.
That did not count.
Especially when I'm doing the curls.
Too much back movement.
He always gets me on the back movement. And I know these things. I mean, it's so much easier to teach other people. Like form is like everything.
I noticed you wore sleeveless today. Are you trying to like?
I always do
a little flex because you
you see this in the
hard this morning
in the YouTube. Oh my gosh,
Some guns going on.
I don't know about. I mean, you can literally like see my hand here. That's going right around. There's one thing to have like big muscular arms and then just, I say they're defined, but I'll tell you what. This right here, that shoulder going down, that's genetic.
That's
100%.
I don't know.
It's genetic. Yeah, I'm not gonna try to fake that. But I got asked about that ever since I was a little girl.
What?
I used to be embarrassed. If you're watching on YouTube, there's literally pictures of me sitting like this in we would take family pictures. And I remember saying to my mom many times, Mom, why do I have shoulders like a boy?
Really?
Yeah. I used to be so embarrassed. And people growing up from the time I was in elementary school asked me if I was a swimmer. And then as I got a little bit older,
those swimmers,
in high school,
they have some defined shoulders and back.
Yeah, I mean, I have wide shoulders, but then people then just assumed that I was a cage fighter. I got asked, "Are you a cage fighter? Are you a bodybuilder?"
Do you think you could do an MMA type thing or no?
I don't think so. I think mentally I would struggle.
Why?
I don't want to hit other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I could. Yeah.
But if they're
I don't know how people do it.
But if they're trying to hit you, wouldn't you be like, okay, I need to defend myself and fight back to like win or no? Is that not?
Here's the thing. I've watched MMA with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make me happy to see how, not in every case, but like, it is pretty cool when after the fighters just beat the crap out of each other and then they shake hands and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Like that is like probably the one reason why I've gone back and watched it with you. Because in my mind, I'm like, that is so terrible and painful and horrible. But I have to keep telling myself, no, it's a sport. They both signed up for it. They both want to do this and it's a sport. But like, I don't know. I don't want to get in a ring with another woman and see if I can knock her out.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would just be hard for me to actually commit to that kind of training. I respect it. I mean, for those that are fighters and do it, like, wrestlers, MMA, all of that, like, I think the training for that is, I have so much respect for how hard they train. It is gnarly training, and they're very strong and dedicated, and especially for how short sometimes their fights are. I mean, these guys will train for like 8 months and their fight's over in 60 seconds. And
I feel like if you went into a gym and you're like, I want to get into MMA and I want to see how quickly I can get into an actual fight. I feel if you went with the wrestling route, like I feel you do really well.
Why?
Just because you got the endurance, because like you got to be like that's a hard work, right? When you wrestle someone and you got to have some stamina, some endurance. So you have that, and you're strong. You can you get some
strong.
People and hold them, and I think you'd be really good at that. I think you'd probably need some work on the striking.
Yeah.
Kicking you'd be really good at too, though.
Yeah, that's what genre is that? Not genre. What's the martial arts where it's mainly kicking? Is it jiu-jitsu? Is jiu-jitsu more kicking based?
No.
Aren't some of them more kicking based and some of them are more?
Yeah, I think Muay Thai is
Muay Thai the more on the ground?
It's a lot of kicking and knees, stuff like
knees. That. Okay. What's jiu-jitsu? Is that's
more like
both?
Wrestling and
okay, it's both
holds and stuff like that. But I think you'd do really good if it was like a wrestling. You'd be a good wrestler. I feel like you'd be a good wrestler.
Could you honestly sit in the stands and like cheer for me?
If it was something that you were really into and I saw you like you were dedicated and you put all this work in, yeah, I could.
How many 45-year-old women get into MMA?
I don't know. Probably not a lot. Yeah. Because that's probably not a lot.
I mean, have you ever seen, this isn't MMA, but like, I know that there's like 60, 70-year-olds that get really into CrossFit and they're so good. Like 6-packs and lifting really heavy weight and climbing up ropes. I look at that and I'm like, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Cause I see some of the stuff they do. I'm like, I don't think I could do that or lift that or even do that move.
Yeah.
On the rings and all that. Like, it's just amazing.
I just learned the other day that, so growing up, my soccer coach, my club soccer coach, and his son was my friend in high school, but they're from Ireland, and he moved back to Ireland probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, I would guess. And he got really into like the Spartan stuff and obstacle like type stuff, and just found out he just got into like MMA and boxing and all this stuff. And he's I bet he's close to 60 now.
Really?
And
I love
apparently
that.
apparently he's like super good at MMA, and
That's
he's
amazing.
taking punches and
Gosh, it's
at
amazing.
60 years old. So, anyways,
That's really encouraging. You know, that's definitely something that I and it's not because I'm 45. I'm veering now more into heck, like next year I'm going to be 46. That's crazy to think. I don't feel that way though. But I really love seeing people who show up at the gym. Like, remember we met Jim.
Mhm.
The guy's name is Jim, but
yep.
showed up at the fitness center, Jim, uh, who was, what was he,
83.
83 years
Mhm.
old.
Yeah.
This morning, there was a gentleman who was probably around the same age, and he was with his wife. Did you see him?
I
He
did see
was
him. Yeah.
balancing. Did you see him balancing on the, the half Bosu ball?
Yeah. I didn't see him do
He
that.
was
no.
balancing on that, squatting.
Hmm.
And I just flashed him a huge old smile, him and his wife. I was like,
It's
that is so impressive.
Yeah.
But I think that the good message that needs to continue in the health and fitness world, in strength training, is that whether or not you're signing up for races or for competition, you should continue and be encouraged to continue trying physical activities. If you have an able body, man, what a gift.
Mhm.
And just because you hit 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, it's not like, well, I guess I'm just, my best days are behind me, and like I don't race anymore, I don't do this anymore, I don't go to the gym anymore. I'm just, no, like what can you try? And maybe you're not going to be as explosive and fast as powerful, but like, man, the ability to move, the ability to build strength, to get stronger, and like your former coach, like to try a new sport, that is
Yeah.
so incredible. I love that. That's what we should continue doing.
Yeah, it's funny to picture him doing that, because all I pictured him as just like a soccer coach that
Right.
he was really gentle and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, apparently he's like really good at this. So
Mm-hmm.
good for him.
This episode is brought to you by Manu honey. Are you looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine? Are you a honey fan like me? I love honey. One of my favorite things is a peanut butter and honey sandwich, in addition to any type of tea. I love to add honey. Now, you have to try Manu honey. It is on its own level. It's rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever had. Manu honey contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. See, the bees collect the nectar from the manuka tree in New Zealand, and the nectar is packed with bioactives, and the honey that is produced has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey. And a special antibacterial compound called MGO also comes from the nectar of the tea tree. Manu third-party tests every single harvest for MGO and makes these results available through their QR system. It's a game changer. And now it's easier than ever to try Manu honey. Head to manukora.com/Sally to get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus a Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. That's manukora.com/SALLY. Well, for those of you that have already started your run and you are now 28 minutes in, or however long this supposed introduction was for us, Eddie, we as always just love to commend you for showing up today. We are proud of you for putting in the work for yourself and whatever it is you're working toward. And for those that are just, on their way to work, they're driving home from work, they're in the kitchen. I don't know if any kids are even still around. If you are, hello, Eddie and Sally are, we're rooting for you in your day. But, this is one of the messages that I love just to continue to remind people of is every day we get an opportunity to grow.
Yep.
Every day we get an opportunity to better ourselves. I was looking at a, I don't even know what this video was that I was watching, but it's a very simple thing that Kobe Bryant would say. He's like, at the end of every day, I just ask myself, did I get better?
Yeah.
You know what a great thing to ask yourself. And here's the thing, we don't get better unless we're honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be someone who's honest with myself. You don't need to make a social media post. You don't need to broadcast it to everyone. But man, when you're brushing your teeth at night, you can ask yourself, you can make a little Post-it note. You can get one of those washable markers or whiteboard markers and put it on your mirror. Did I get better today? And I think that encompasses a lot of different things, whatever it is that you're working on.
Yeah.
You know, so it could be, if you're in a rough patch in your relationship, that's a question you can ask. Like, was I better today in that relationship? Did we make progress? Did we work? Did I try? Was I forgiving? Was I loving? You know, and I think it's the same thing in our 9-to-5 jobs and in that sport that we're training for. And it isn't about, you know, was it painful?
Mm-hmm.
Was it intense? Was it really long, the work that I put in? But it's like, did you do something? You know, sometimes I'm just trying to get better at drinking more water. You know,
Right?
Here I am with another coffee.
Sal, come on, get that water
Okay,
going.
I did get my greens. I did start the day
with
with 4 cups of water. I had a cup and a half of water just to get all of my vitamins down. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to even start on that. Like, I don't know, for listeners, are you feeling like you need to be taking 600 supplements lately? I just feel like there's always like another thing that I need to be taking. I
old.
legit I mean, my doctor is straight up gave me so many. Eddie has just been like, seriously, one more thing. It's like vitamin K, vitamin D, fish oil, multivitamins. Like, there's so many.
Your doctor's just making things up to make you take it.
I do feel better. I do feel better after
You better.
after Western States. I knew we need to go back to the drawing board and start from zero here. But yeah, it took me a cup and a half of water. So it took me about, I don't know, 12, 14 ounces to get all my vitamins down this morning.
Wasn't it the good old days when like
you
were given
Flintstone vitamin?
Yes, that little dinosaur vitamin's like, all right, here you go, Eddie.
Oh man,
that was it.
Well, you know what? I think that the vitamin companies tried to bring that up. You ever go to the store and into the vitamin section now? Everything's a gummy. I mean, oh my gosh, I could have a bag of candy every morning for all the gummies that are out there. There's a gummy for your melatonin, for your vitamin C, your vitamin D, your multivitamin.
Full disclosure, the other day when I was in the kitchen, this is 2 days ago, and I'm not sick. I'm feeling healthy. I'm feeling good. But I opened the cabinet and I saw one of those like, you know, purple immunity like gummies that we have in there. And I was like, I just wanted one, so I just it's like a gummy bear. So I just threw it in there. Yeah.
It's the elderberry.
You know what? Not even sick, and I wanted one of those things.
We do elderberry in our house. As soon as my kids will sniffle, I'll be like, take 3 of these, because they gladly take them.
They're so good.
Have some candy, kids. But honestly, if you took like 2 elderberry, 2 vitamin C, 2 multivitamins, you know, maybe you need some extra vitamin D. I mean, that's a bag of candy right there.
I was listening to a podcast. I think it might have been a Joe Rogan one or something. I don't know. But someone was talking about like you spend like half your day, half the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Just taking vitamins, like
right?
Just to like get on with your day.
And,
like,
and let's not get started on all the biohacks we're supposed to be doing
so
too.
Much.
Start your day with sunlight, laying in the sun, and then cold plunge, then get in the sauna, and then, you know, do this dry brushing. And it's like, I don't know about you, but like, man, especially when the kids were babies, I was doing none of that. I was like trying to survive.
Yeah, I'm gonna start following the guy as soon as he says, "Hey, wake up, grab some coffee, and then biohack. You need to take a 2-hour nap."
Hey,
I'm gonna start following that guy.
Get up and take a 2-hour nap. Okay, I don't know who's gonna tell you that, but like, someone did post a picture the other day that did our coffee on the bike. Okay.
Yeah.
They did the coffee on the bike, and I was like, yes. And as I had said before,
it does work.
This is not an excuse by any means, but I'll tell you what, it works. It gets you out the door. It gets you started. It gets you moving. And
You know,
Eddie and I, we did like 3 days last
we
week.
did, but then now that the time has changed, it's brighter earlier, so I feel like I'm a little more awake at the normal
agreed.
time. So I'm like, I don't really
Agreed.
need to do the bike anymore. So
You don't.
I've been going in to the gym without it. But I think if I wanted to go really early, I'd have to do that.
Well, the other thing is it's not even coffee on the bike. I bet I could woo some people to the 5 a.m. wake up call by
With
saying
what?
Netflix in the bike.
Netflix?
Start off with an episode. Go ahead.
I
Do
don't know.
30 minutes of Netflix and then get off that bike when the episode is over and pick up those weights.
Yeah.
Or get on the treadmill or like do something. Sometimes you just need to do a little reverse psychology.
Yeah.
You know, you just actually need to get yourself out of bed. And at the root of all of that, really what you're doing is you're giving yourself something to look forward to. And I think that's always a good conversation to have with yourself too.
Yeah.
Why is it a little bit harder to get out of bed? What is it that is good and lasting that you can always look forward to? And this is why making goals is good. And I talked about, I love lifting weights, but I think making little mini goals is fun too. Like today I was like, I'm going to try mini goals, mini kudos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I think, you know, it's going back to being honest with ourselves. So this idea of what was I better today? What we're doing is we're just practicing asking ourselves a question that is going to ensure that we're making progress.
Kobe said that?
Yeah, man, it's good. It's good. It's very simple. It's not like groundbreaking. It's not like no one's ever said that before. It's just kind of like, that's a good thing I can ask myself.
Yeah.
I can ask myself, was I better today?
Yep.
And then you can insert whatever it is that you're working on. Or even it's a personal thing. You know, for some of us, like, was I a better parent today? You know, like we go through seasons where parenting is very hard.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's because you're a brand new parent or you've entered the teenage
You got
years.
the teenagers, yeah.
Okay.
And you're like, I do not know how to parent at all.
Yeah, you thought you were a good parent.
I do not know what I'm doing.
And then they turned 13.
Yes. Yep.
We feel you in all those stages, by the way. That's a big shout to our parents.
Then you have a 15-year-old daughter, you're like, I give up. I do not know what I'm doing. I do not know what's going on here.
Yeah. Then they bring home that boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's for another podcast, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
We can talk about that another day, but
or not.
Yeah. I just like to remind people, listen, you are not alone.
Yeah.
When whatever it is that you are, whatever season that you're in, whatever you're working toward, you're not alone in that. You're not the first person to go through it. It's not the first time that this has been felt. We hope that you never feel alienated or weird or odd or that there's just no end in sight, because, you know, I know personally I can be a testament to that. Eddie can too. It's and this is why it's so good to stay connected with people. You know, share those things. And I'm not saying you need to share it on social media. I know we kind of live in that world where we think we have to do a bunch of dumping, but you don't. Like, you got one or two like really good friends. I know even I'm still like that to this day. I've got like a handful of friends I will share everything with, and I'm a pretty candid about my life. I wrote a memoir about the first half of my life, and you know, I see the good in that, how that's brought a lot of light for people, encouragement for people. But I think that this idea that we have to always share our struggles and things that are hard for us or those seasons, it's, you know what, it is a gift when you have one or two people that you can really just sit and talk to, you know, will listen and understand you and care about you. But you know, just putting that reminder out into the world that you are not alone, you're seen and you're loved and you matter. And, you know, growth comes through the hardships.
Yeah.
Growth comes when we're honest with ourselves. You know, can I change this? Or I keep on hitting my head on the same wall. I wonder if I need to change how I do things. I wonder if I need to change how I'm approaching this situation. And anyway, I just thought I'd share that because I like that. It was challenging to me, you know.
Yeah, I like
Did
that.
I do better today?
Yep.
This episode is brought to you by Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Now, one of the things that I really love about this is that it can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Sally to get 15% off your Lumen. That is LUMEN.me/Sally for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
All right. Well, did you see what I was wearing over here, Sal?
I see that you are wearing the first ever Choose Strong t-shirt.
I am
And I'm very
representing.
proud of that design, that shirt. Listen,
a good shirt.
for those of you that are not on YouTube, I don't know. We posted that. I think I cheered for Isaiah at his race in
You
that
did,
the other
yeah.
day. But we are having a Black Friday sale that will be starting. We're hoping it'll start the week of Thanksgiving and not necessarily the day after not the day after Thanksgiving. But we are going to be releasing 2 shirts, a sweatshirt, 2 hats, and a little surprise. We have a little Black Friday surprise.
Surprise.
So I'm very excited. It's been a long time waiting for the Choose Strong shirt. This is the first in its collection. So we are kind of putting together collections for 2025. We have our Do the Work, our Choose Strong, Stay Sturdy, Pass Gap and Berry, and pretty soon Don't Quit in the middle. So these are just some of our favorite things that we like to say when we're working through a hard race.
Yeah.
But just also some hard moments in our life. You know, we've gotten a lot of communication about that from people just saying, you know, I remind myself of, you know, choosing strong or just putting in that work in whatever I do. And it's been really helpful. So thanks for sporting the shirt, Ed.
It's a great shirt. Feels good too.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on, Sal. I am going to share.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I'm going to share a review that came in from the Apple world, the Apple podcast world.
Okay.
It is from Sarah White 93. She says, I was a professional ballet dancer for the last 11 years and was forced to retire due to my second pregnancy and being diagnosed with gestational diabetes. Postpartum, I started running. I never ran before, and I ran a 50K in October this year. I have found so much comfort in how you live your life and your work ethic because being a mom means your life just looks different. Thank you for continuing to inspire me and other runners. Please come to Minnesota to run the Superior Hiking Trail.
Oh, yeah, the Superior 100. That's a classic, solid 100-mile race.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's been brought up many times. Let's just highlight 11-year ballerina.
There's a lot of things we can highlight.
Professional ballerina.
Professional ballerina.
Oh, man.
Ballet dancer. I guess
We were talking about hard training. Okay, let's talk about professional ballerinas. You ever watch any documentaries?
You know what?
On what it takes?
I haven't.
To become a professional insane.
I'm sure it's intense.
That is some intense,
I know that
dedicated work.
The dance world is very, like, their commitment is insane.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like the time devoted, and Mackenzie never really got into it because she was a runner, but we've had other
She loved
friends.
dancing when we put it in there. And she even said when she was in high school, she's like, I'm pretty sure I would have been a dancer if I didn't run.
Yeah, you gotta, there's a serious commitment for that. So yeah, 11 years.
11 years. Yeah. big props. My mom was a dancer. She was a beautiful, beautiful dancer, and tried going back to it after she had my brother. So she was only like 20.
Yeah.
And her teacher said to her, had you not quit, you could have easily become a professional dancer. Kind of broke her heart right there. I wish that she did not listen to that comment. But that's how I know about the technicality, the training, the difficulty of it. I mean, it's amazing.
So is that what you attribute your sick dance moves to that? Your genes?
I wish I could say I'm a good dancer. I am not.
I don't know how I would. Okay, first of all, I'm just going to say this. There's no way I could be a ballet dancer.
I don't know.
That might shock
the flexibility that you have when
you
jump straight up into a split leap.
I can do that.
A Russian.
I haven't
like
done
the
it in a while,
facing, like the cheerleading split, is unreal.
It is
like
unreal.
Like tears coming out of my eyes.
Yeah,
I don't know why you're so flexible.
You get me on a trampoline, I pull that one off 10 out of 10, baby.
This is true. This is actually true.
But what I was going to talk about, there's no way I would be able to be a ballet dancer just because of the toe action that you have to have.
Another thing, right?
Like, I feel like my toes, like I could not. And do you build up, or how do you do that?
They're point shoes or whatever.
Yeah, like how do they do that? Like
I don't know. It looks so painful though.
Toe stretches to strengthen them. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no room to speak into that.
I have zero knowledge.
But 11 years as a pro ballerina.
Yeah, and then she went on
applause.
to run a 50K, and she's never even ran prior to having kids. So
that's amazing.
Sarah White 93, props to you. Thanks for listening to the show. And maybe Sally get out to Minnesota and run that Superior hiking trail if it's not in winter.
Yeah.
Winter would be kind of cold there. All right. That was the review I wanted to read. Now, I grouped some highlights that I just want to breeze over, but not breeze over, but really just kind of highlight. And there's a theme. I went themed this time.
Oh, you did?
Yes, yeah.
That's so cute.
I know, very cute. And the theme is New York City Marathon Edition.
Okay.
So we're going to highlight.
Do we have a lot of people that
ran
the New York City?
I
think it was the most runners in the history of that race. You could do a quick search on your computer. I don't have my computer in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was like 55,000.
That's so many people.
Or was it 65? No, I think it was 55. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, New York City Marathon, incredible spirit, and it's one of the majors. If you don't know, it is one of the majors in the 7 major marathons. Although, did you know that the Sydney Marathon is going to be added to that?
I did not.
There's now going to be 8 majors, but
I did not.
It was fun following it. We had a lot of friends that
You know what? That's what I was going to... Before I got into these highlights, I just thought of this. Mackenzie's roommate, Kiki Vaughn.
Yes.
Well, one of her roommates. Her mom, Sarah Vaughn.
Yep.
First female for the Americans, right?
Female.
Come on now.
Yep.
Shout out to Sarah Vaughn.
Shout out to Sarah Vaughn for being the first American female.
Yes.
She was the 6th female. Yeah,
that's right. 6th.
And yeah, just amazing.
Yeah.
So that was super fun to track that. We were cheering pretty hard for her. I know it's a dream race for a lot of people. It's funny because I've been to the expo a couple times.
Yeah.
Working the booths and just being there. But the spirit in New York City for that race, it's like Boston, you just feel it. You just feel the excitement and the energy. And, New York City's bigger. There's more runners that run it. So it's wild. Yeah. So fun.
Yep. So, all right. I got Brianna. Oh man, the last name Bowerly. Brianna Bowerly. She said that she posted in the Choose Strong community Strava group. She said, "Congrats to all those that crushed those bridges." And she ran the New York City Marathon 4 hours, 6 minutes.
Amazing.
Brianna, well done. Big props to you. And then we have Javier Pinto. He has a beautiful picture of him holding his medal up. It says, "Greetings from NYC, his first major marathon." So Javier Pinto, well done, my friend. Getting the New York City Marathon checked off. It's pretty awesome.
That is amazing.
And the last one, I want to highlight Mr. Will Wright. Will Wright also ran the New York City Marathon. This is what he said in his Strava post. He says, "What an epic race. I listened to the latest Chew Strong episode while in the village, a starting corral, and I got all kinds of fired up.
Aww.
Too bad the Greensboro Bridge kicked my butt, though. Still an amazing experience. The energy from the crowd carried me through a lot of those miles."
That's amazing. Okay, here it is.
Well done, Will.
55,646 finishers, largest marathon in history.
Oh, wow.
And Will ran it.
Yep.
Will
Will
congratulations. Did. You were part of a historical event. Thank you for taking us along with you. I've heard a lot about that bridge too. A lot of people say, yeah, was it windy? Is that a lot of people say it's windy.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that.
It's exposed and windy. But
yeah, apparently there's quite a few bridges.
Yeah. So Will was a part of a historic, here, let's give a big shout too. We had Kevin Limecooler, who ran a 2:51:27. And he broke the world record for the fastest marathon in Crocs.
In Crocs? No way.
In Crocs.
That's so impressive.
That is so impressive.
Were they in sports mode?
They were in sport mode.
Figures.
They definitely had to be in sport mode.
It's kind of cheating.
Anyway, do you have more?
That's it. I just wanted to highlight those
that ran it.
NYC Marathon Runners. So well done. If we didn't highlight you, we saw you. We saw a couple people post that, and so I thought that was important thing to highlight, because especially as we're moving into our topic for today, Sal. I ran a marathon this past year.
You did.
The LA Marathon. Yes, I did. And, thought it was fitting to, highlight some New York City Marathon runners. But, so I ran a marathon this past year. And, Sal, I haven't given it a ton of thought. But, if I was to bump up in the world of running, and I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek because I literally have not run in, it's been 2 months probably straight, and it's
not consistently run.
No,
gone out for
not run at all, literally. And yeah, it's been 2 months.
Has it been 2 months?
I think so.
Oh.
Let me go check my Strava in a second. Yeah. Hold on. But it's not because I'm hurt. It's just because I have not ran. So here I am talking about I ran a marathon, and am I, potentially, theoretically, if I was to bump up to the next distance in the world of running, that would most likely be a 50K. Now, I want to segue here and ask a couple questions because this is complete just theoretical. If I was to do that, okay, first of all, I have no idea because I've really never asked these questions, but what is the training like for a 50K versus a marathon? I get that if it's on trail, that might be different, but training wise, mileage wise, time wise, what is the difference between the marathon and bumping up to a 50K?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, let's just highlight.
Let's do it. What are we highlighting?
Let's just highlight the thinking process here. One, very excited that this thought would come into your mind. The consideration of going from marathon to ultra marathon. And this is something that you and I have talked about off air many times, because I personally think that if you have run a marathon or you just do a marathon training program, you can run a 50K. We're looking at the difference of depending on the race, because a 50K, sometimes it comes in at 30 miles, 31, 32. It's around there. So you're looking at 5 or 6 more miles than the marathon. And I think that when you consider, for the most part, these are done on trails. There is 50Ks on the track and the road.
Sure.
And flat courses. But, taking that fitness, taking what you built up in order to run the LA Marathon, and then just transferring it on now to dirt, where you're going to have some climbs and some descents. Maybe you'll have some technical trail or something like that. In my mind, the most immediate change that you are going to notice is that it feels more like an adventure, because On the road, it's the same thing over and over again. Like, you're just on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, from marathon to marathon, wherever you are in the world, at most, a marathon might be significantly characterized by that one has a lot of climbing. That one has a big hill. A lot of people talk about Heartbreak Hill for Boston Marathon. Now, trail runners, when, we kind of giggle about Heartbreak Hill when we actually see what it is, right? We're like, that is literally like,
That's
wait,
embarrassing.
what? Yeah. But mad respect when you are hammering on the road and you do hit Heartbreak Hill. I've run Boston before, and it's like, yeah, that like, it takes it out of you.
Yeah.
And so the training for trail running. So and this is, I love, this is going to be the topic of our discussion today, because it is something that people wonder if they are already doing road races, half marathon, a marathon, and then they're like, I wonder if I could do a 50K. I wonder what the training looks like, or what the difference is. I think that first, just prepare yourself to have a different experience, outside of getting into training plans. I think this is one of the joys that you find in the ultra and trail running community is every course is different.
Yeah.
And especially if you travel, you've never been to Colorado. Maybe you're born and raised South Carolina and you want to go run a race in Colorado. Like, it's so fun. Like, you're literally going on this adventure and you're seeing really pretty views, and maybe there'll be a creek or a waterfall, or you'll see deer. And like every 6 miles, there's an aid station with all this like incredible food. And like the volunteers are really nice. And like, you don't just grab a cup of water and keep going. Like, maybe you'll chat with the volunteer, or like change your shoes. And so there's just a lot of different variables that you encounter that you wouldn't in a road marathon.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I get really excited when people start asking me about like trail running. It's easy just to focus on like, well, like, what's the training and what pace are you keeping? It's like, well, let's like kind of talk about how this is just like a different event. And for a 50K, even though it's only 5 miles longer than a marathon, you get several hours more to complete it. And I think that's another reason to give it a try too, is like, sometimes you're going to sign up for a 50K and they're going to give you like 8, 10, 12, 13 hours to go 50K, 31 miles. And so you can actually take your time learning the distance too. And it invites more people in because of that. And, I've always talked about like thru hikers doing so well in the 200-mile event because they're really good at balancing energy and moving for long periods at a time. But I think that if you are just someone who loves being outdoors for a long period of time, like, you start to kind of naturally lean into enjoying ultras outside of whether or not you can run a 6-minute, 5-minute mile on the road. It's the experience that's going to change. And I think that's what I've said to you a few times is I think you would enjoy the experience. I think you'd have fun. And I just like to invite people to try ultras for that. I don't too often, I'm not like campaigning all the time. Like, I think everyone should run an ultra. I don't even think that everyone needs to be a runner, but like, if you want to challenge yourself, ultras are really good at doing that because there's a lot of unforeseen variables that you have to deal with. So it forces you to be flexible.
Yeah.
It forces you to have to kind of react, and then you get to pay attention to how you react to things, right? You're in the middle of a 50K and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a 3,000-foot climb. Are you kidding me? Like pay attention how you respond to that. Pay attention to when you're on top of a mountain and suddenly a storm rolls in.
Yeah.
Or when you forget your headlamp or a jacket. Like, how are you going to work through those things? Like, you don't deal with that in the marathon. And I think that it's kind of fun. You grow, you learn about yourself. And this is also why people make such good friends in the trail community, because you work through those challenges together. I can't tell you how many people, we see it in the Facebook group all the time, but they meet a good friend in the race. Oh yeah, we ran the last 3 hours together.
Yeah.
My new best friend. It's like, when do you do that?
Yeah.
Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. All right. So speak to the person that, had ran a marathon in the past and has zero of that fitness that they had, and this is not me at all, but
asking for a friend.
Speak to that person that might be in this situation, that had fitness a little bit during a marathon, completely lost all of it and gained weight, and now is like, yeah, maybe I'll move it up in the distance in the 50K world. So how would that person like start? What would be the first step for that person?
Well, first I'm going to just, we're at the end of 2024. So if you're looking at a 2025 goal, I know not everyone listens to this podcast in real time or even the year that it happened, but, it's a good time to ask that question. It is a good time to ask yourself, what are some things that I want to try in the new year? Or is there a goal that I want to set for myself? I know earlier in the podcast, we talked about how cool it is that people are still challenging their bodies. Yeah. They're trying new things. They're getting stronger, and we should continue to do that through the decades. And I think that the 50K is a great entry point. So regardless of your fitness level today, Eddie, I think that when you put something on the calendar, or you have an idea that comes into your head, if you have a goal or something you're curious about, I am all about like, go find out more information on that. Go actually, I've actually been doing this like the last few weeks. There's a few routes that I'm looking at. There's a few races that I'm looking at, and I take my time and I read about them. Yeah. I look at what other people's race experiences were. So I'll read their blogs. I'll read their posts. I go onto the race website and I see what I can find there. Are there videos? Is there stuff on YouTube? I just kind of like get a feel and an understanding for maybe what that race is like or what that route is like. And, is that something that interests me, that gets me excited? And I think that setting goals for ourselves, that's like a really cool thing that we can do. We can absolutely pick something because it's something that we're interested in and we know it's going to keep us motivated in training. And this is a little bit different than when you're trying to be motivated in like your everyday work, right? Yeah. And that's why I think what you learn in the things that you love, you can apply it to your work. So if you choose something because you're like, I have always wanted to race in Colorado. I've always wanted to go on those mountains, those trails. It's so beautiful there. And you know what would be fun is to explore 30 miles of it. I'm going to sign up for a 50K. I get 12 hours to do that. That's going to be awesome. Like that is exciting to train for, just even without paying attention to what your current fitness is. Okay, now what is that going to take in order for me to do that well? And I think for our listeners, if you are considering stepping into the ultra world, and you're looking at different training plans and you're looking at, how can I get to that finish line strong? You do now need to start at your starting point. And so I'm going to speak to you specifically, Eddie, instead of just being like really general. Yeah. Because if you were my athlete, I would first start out asking you a lot of questions. So I would want to know like, okay, what's your athletic background? I want to know what you did in high school and in college. Like it actually is important because when I work with athletes who, even if they're in their 40s and their 50s, if I know they're a college athlete, I know how to motivate them. They're just a different mindset. Typically college athletes, they have trained their whole life. Yeah. And there's a certain amount of discipline. There's like this clicking in that they just know to do. When you give them a training plan, they just operate differently with that because they spent most of the first half of their life training and competing. So a lot of the workouts make sense. Motivating them is rarely like the big issue for them. It's other stuff. It's like life stuff. It's career. It's family. It's maybe a chronic injury. It's holding them back from overtraining. So in your case, you are a college athlete and being your wife and, your best friend for more than half your life, I have seen you still behave that way. You have higher standards for yourself when it comes to goals in the gym, weight training and things like that. There is a certain amount of fitness that you always need to keep or else you actually get unhappy. And I just feel like that's so conducive to somebody that's trained their entire life. And it's different for someone, you know, I had an athlete one time that they actually weren't allowed to play sports in school. They could play an instrument, but it was everything was academics.
Like their parents wouldn't let them?
Nope, no sports.
Hmm.
They could play a musical instrument, and then all time had to be dedicated to academics. I mean, that was the most important thing. And I don't think that's very uncommon. And so me constructing a plan for him, it looked different. Because, you know, this idea of programming and off season and recovery days, okay, these are your hard days and like these are the workouts and like we're going to be progressively building you, and just that idea of competing with yourself and understanding how you grow and why you need a foundation, and like that was all brand new. And this gentleman was in his mid 40s. So I think the value in each person for first asking themselves very basic questions. So do I have a foundation in fitness? What, you know, did I play sports my whole life? And then you build from there. So I know that you have a foundation in fitness. I would then ask you, so after that, I would then ask you, how long have you been training consistently? And this is whether you have consistently been doing Pilates, consistently been cycling, consistently been lifting weights. I just want to know, how long have you had a routine? How long have you been trying to like do something week after week after week? And if someone says, well, I actually have not done anything consistently for the past 3 years, that person's starting point is going to look different than the person that was like, well, I was consistent and I got injured 6 months ago. So I'm just coming back from injury, but I've been consistently training for the last 10 years. Okay, totally different again. So, you know, when I look at what you've been doing, which is Eddie's goals, it's a new goal every other week.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I realize a couple major things about you. One, you actually don't need a lot of motivation to work out, because you're always looking for another goal. So you have a gym pass to 2 different gyms. You have a route that you love to walk and bike frequently. But the idea of getting into a actually structured, consistent training plan that you're always following has not been something that you've done for a while, but you have not been sedentary for very long. So whether you are lifting, cycling, or something. So for me to now take that and like, okay, let's shift you now into this idea of, let's say you're going to run a 50K in May or June. Okay. I know you don't have a race picked out or anything, but I hope you do soon. But let's just say it's like 7-8 months away that you would be racing. I would want to take the next 12 weeks and just do a foundation building for you. And I think that is the best way to start moving into an ultra marathon training program for someone who has maybe not been consistent, structured training, but is like still active and moving, and you're not injured. Okay. So you're not injured, you are active. And so now we're going to lay a foundation. Foundation training is based on 2 key things. And this is my personal coaching, what I believe. And that is strength and aerobic base building. So it's a lot of aerobic training, and it's strength training. That is like the roots on which you will stand as you move into run workouts and building mileage and so on and so forth. Now you're actually training for the 50K. What that looks like, it's going to be very similar to marathon training. In fact, I've told this to so many people who live in the city, who don't have the luxury of even going out on the weekends to, you know, drive to a mountain or get on the trail. You know, I've coached a lot of single parents and people that live in places that don't have family to help and have to work on the weekends and just don't have that time. You can absolutely train for a trail race running entirely on the road. Using a treadmill and a stair mill to get vert in. 100%. That's how I trained for my first ultra marathon, which was a 50-mile race. Yeah. I was not on the trails, and at 80% of it was in the gym on a treadmill. So I would just encourage you to find confidence and a little bit of peace knowing that what you did last year when we trained for the marathon, we're going to do that again. Now, if you have the luxury, the opportunity, if there is a chance to go and get you on a trail, I would. If you could just get on a trail 1 to 2 times a month leading up to that race, purely to practice nutrition while wearing a pack, to get some climbing in, just to be in the dirt climate, be on a trail, that's all going to help you mentally. That's all going to just be like, hey, this is what you can expect. But I think that overall, when it comes down to it, the further you go, the more important it is that you build a good foundation of just overall fitness and strength. And that's where I have started every single year. I build up a nice aerobic base. I get my body strong head to toe. And then regardless if I'm doing 100K, 160K, a 200 mile, 250 mile, I then lean into what that race looks like, and I'll start to customize it in accordance to that. So, there have been times in my life where I've run entirely flat 100-mile races, and it's like, okay, I don't really need to do as much vert. I want to be able to run really well. But then there's been other races where it's like, wow, this has 30, 40,000 feet of climbing. I need to do a lot of climbing.
Yeah.
And since it's my job, I'm going to be in the mountains a lot doing that, but it's very race specific. And so, that would be the next step. So first you build that foundation, and you could start doing a foundation, before even knowing what race you want to do. The key is just to first be consistent and disciplined in running and strengthening your body. And so you would do some strength training during the base building. I would get you in the gym like 3 days a week, strength training. And if I could get you running 3 days a week, awesome. 4 days a week would be ideal, but like that's what your plan would look like.
All right. So I want to come back to this because you did mention a pack. I want to get back to that in a second. But before I do, let's say that the 50K training plan is underway. What is the average mileage per week that you think it would be healthy for someone to be running in order to pull off a 50K?
Well, when it comes to new runners, so I would say like newbie runners are like just a couple years in, like entirely new to road and everything. I really like to focus on time.
Okay.
So I would focus more on like, hey, let's try to get, X amount of hours a week running. When you give that approach to a new athlete, it feels doable. It feels like, I can do that. When you tell an athlete like, hey, we need to get like 40, 50 miles a week, like that is very overwhelming and feels, a little bit daunting. And sometimes that's where athletes like start to lose, I don't always want to say like motivation. It isn't that. It's just like, man, this just, instead like kids will do this. Like it just feels too hard. It's not worth it.
Well, I'm not going to lie. When you said last year when I was training for the LA, you were like, all right, you got to do 14 Saturday.
Yeah.
I was like, started thinking about like, oh man. That's
it feels so hard. Yeah. It feels overwhelming.
But I guess if you would have been like, hey, go out and run for like 2.5 hours or whatever, I would have been like, nah, all right, I can probably do that.
And there's two parts of that. So I'll say that to like new runners, but I also say that to people that are coming off of a off season and those that are returning from injury. So even for myself, I do that when I go into off season training. If I feel like running great, and if I do, it's all time based. I'm not trying to hit a mileage. I'm just like, I'm going to go run for an hour. I'm going to go run for 90 minutes. It just feels less like,
daunting.
Less daunting.
So what if I was not a beginner? What would you say mileage wise per week?
Yeah. So average? if that is the way that you like to train, and again, there's some people that always, no matter what, every season, 10 years in, they only train based on time.
Yeah.
So, but others are like, no, I need miles. Like I need to see myself hitting the numbers.
More concrete.
Yeah. And some of us are number people. Like some of us actually do pull out an Excel sheet.
Yep.
And we're going to put in everything. We put in our paces and like we put
That's not you, by the way, but everybody
it
else.
Isn't me at all.
I was going to say, when have you ever pulled up an Excel sheet?
Yeah. But like there are seasons. Like I remember when I was leading up to Badwater in 2021, the year that I really, really wanted to win that. Like my mileage per week was that was one of the things that I shifted on, and I really paid attention to that because I knew at some point I needed to be hitting consecutive 100 every single week, but then I needed to build on that, and I needed to get into 120, 130, 140. I think I capped out at 160 miles a week, but like that was necessary for what it is that I wanted to do for the goal that I was aiming for. But I haven't built my career on that.
Yeah.
It isn't, I don't get obsessed with that. And that is mainly because I do bigger mountain races.
Yeah.
And it's a lot harder to dial in a pace per mile in the bigger mountain races. So you want to be really good at being on your feet for a long time. So for you, when I look at miles, and I think that for most people, runner or not, they think of miles too.
Yeah.
How many miles do you run
yeah.
a week? What are you doing? I think that you can train for a lot of races, both marathon and 50K, 40 miles a week.
40.
Yeah. I would even go as low as 30, but I would try to encourage to at least get to 40, 100%. Because what you can do, and especially if you're injury prone, if you are someone that just does not, you don't have the luxury of doing long runs all the time and just running every single day. This is like, okay, we'll do a long run that's 10 to 12 miles. Okay, then all we're really looking at is 18 to 20 miles for the rest of the entire week. But I would put you on the bike then. I had one athlete who they trained for an Ironman, and they were only running 20 miles a week because they were injury prone. And so being in the water, there's no pounding there, there's no pounding on the bike. But once her mileage went up, on the road with all that other training, it was always battling an injury. So it was half of her run training was on the elliptical. And then she would do, just a handful of miles on the road. And she did great.
Yeah.
She's an Ironman athlete, like solid athlete. And so, that's where customization comes in. But those are a few cues for people listening. So sometimes as we get older, we can't handle as much pounding. And again, this doesn't even have anything to do with like road or trail and how soft the surface is. It's just like, it's just a lot of pounding on the body. You're taking your body and you're slamming it onto the earth on one leg. And so this is also why strength training is so important. But if you're brand new to that, don't obsess so much on how much mileage you're getting in, but let's take a look at like your overall fitness and how much time you have on your feet. And it might be on an arc trainer. It might be on an elliptical, on a stair mill. And then some of your miles are going to be just actually, running. But if you are solid, you're able body, I would say your base, I'd love to see at least 40 miles a week. Building up there is ideal, but everyone kind of has that point where you're like, I'm starting to break. I'm starting to be exhausted. I'm not recovering well. And that all comes with experience. And that is why I always say for my newer runners, just a couple years in, they don't have all of those markers yet. They haven't raced enough. They haven't trained enough. Seasoned athletes, and I'm going to just say athletes, if you have a body, you are an athlete. So regardless of what it is that you have trained for consistently year after year after year after year, you learn a lot. There's a lot of feedback that's always being given to you when you train. And this is why I like the idea of keeping a journal, even keeping a Strava that you can have completely private, but you can write notes in there every single time. And you can kind of see like Strava is great because it gives you that graph. And you see the graph go up and down as you add mileage. And now you can take a look at like all the different categories. So whether you're hiking, biking, weightlifting, you can see a graph for each of those sports. But athletes, you learn a lot about yourself when you honestly let's look back for a month's time. And then you do that over the course of years. And what athletes learn is like, wow, every time I start running more than 70 miles, I break or I get sick. And it isn't always because, your body can't handle that training. It's like, let's also take into the fact that you're a nurse.
Yeah.
and you work
Got a lot going on.
yeah, you're working these night
and
shifts. Like there's a lot. Yeah. So when you couple your unique career with running 70 miles a week, and then you're also trying to get a yoga class in there and a strength training class, like we got to look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think, moving into, let's go back to like the basis of our message here, moving from the marathon into the 50K, it's 100% doable, I think, for anyone that has crossed the finish line of the marathon. Now, if you're like, I've never even run a marathon before, I just want to dive straight into the 50K. Yes, you can do it. You can do whatever it is that you commit to and that you're going to commit to the training for. The thing that you need to look at is whether or not you've evaluated your own starting point. Have you given time to look at all of these pieces that we've discussed? So it's like you have a training age. Do you have a history of injury? Have you been consistently training in the last 6 months? What is your history in building mileage? And then what are your other life stresses? But, the 50K, I actually think, is a little bit more inviting than the road marathon, because on average, most 50Ks give you more time to finish it. And the difference is only 5 miles. Now, for those of you listening, like, don't you just feel like I've given you that courage to do it? I feel like I can do it. I can run through a wall now. I can do a 50K. You absolutely can.
That's what we all feel when you hear Sally talk about anything like that. So in terms of the mileage is 40-ish a week. What about time-wise training? Like if you were like compared to a marathon training schedule versus the 50K, it's not much difference in terms of time, right?
Not at all. I think it's the same.
You can
put the same amount. And you can absolutely quote me on this. I think it's the same all the way up to 50 miles. When I ran my first 50 mile, and again, I was doing so much experimenting because, it was in that year, in the end of 2009, 2010, our kids were babies. Both of them were babies. And I've told this story before, but it was like me sitting there on the couch so frustrated because I for weeks had not been able to could not do the training that I wanted to. It did not look like any of the training plans or anything I had read online. And I was frustrated. And Isaiah, crawls up onto my belly. He's 10 months old, and he gives me this big sloppy kiss on my face. And I had this moment, like this mama moment, where I was like, it shouldn't feel frustrating. This shouldn't feel frustrating for me. Like I should be enjoying what I have in front of me for what it is. I'm going to do the best with what I have right now in this season. And that is always a very important time in my life that I always reflect back on. When I'm frustrated where I'm at, and I keep on hitting a wall, and I'm like, it's not working out. This plan isn't working out. I have to remember that there is a reason for that. And so the plan that I constructed, it was purely a marathon training program with 2 extra long runs. That was it. So I did the hill repeats, I did the tempo run, and all of that was done on a treadmill. 80% of my training was on a treadmill. The other 20% was when Eddie, after working 12 hours, would come home and be like, dude, do you want to get a run outside? Or those times when you would take the kids to McDonald's at the playground, you would go to McDonald's with them, and then you come home. You would give me 3 or 4 hours, and I would go and do like these really long runs. I was still figuring it all out. We both were.
Yeah.
That was it. And I was very fit. I was very, very fit. I mean, I ran very well. I actually was like in the top 2 or 3 up until 30, 35 miles. And then I started cramping. I didn't know anything about nutrition. Nutrition pretty much crushed me in there. I had leg cramps all the way through. I mean, I still got 7th. I ran 7:40 for my first 50-mile race. But I was marathon fit for that race. I was road marathon fit. And so I still believe that if you have marathon fitness, like you've been training consistently in marathons, or you're just a consistent road runner, you can go all the way up to the 50-mile and like be pretty confident in that training. It's pretty wild how much the race changes just from the 50-mile to the 100K, which is 62 miles. And that's when things start to realize that you kind of need to have a few more longer runs. You need to have a few more days in your training that you're just like, I'm going to go out for like 4 or 5 hours and kind of figure this out. So, but yeah, I think someone training with a marathon training program, so if they have a coach that isn't like great at, ultras, doesn't understand them, has never coached anyone, like they can literally still train you just like you're running a marathon. You'll be great in the in the 50K. I would just suggest, even without knowledge of ultra coaching, just suggest like your hill phase. So there's a leg strengthening hill phase that I always like to give athletes that I think is just important. Just add in a few more of those. Add in some more hill work. Add in like a handful of workouts that are like long hill repeats. Put in some stair mill in there. Do a few more sessions of that. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
I think we complicate things way too much. You're going to get the most benefit from some solid long runs and some good climbing. But yeah, from the 50K to the 50 mile, you're not going to see a huge difference. Now, if you are like, hey, I'm done with road, this is why I'm going to run a 50K. I don't want to run on the road anymore. And I actually do live near trails. I live in mountains. Like, dude, do all your training on the trails. Yeah. Massive benefit. Like, that's fun. Put on your pack and just go for it. But, I like to speak to as wide of audience as I can and just encourage and kind of dispel some of the myths that, that you need to live in a mountain town and be climbing all the time in order to do ultra and trail running. You don't.
Yeah. All right. So back to the pack. Is it necessary to wear a pack? And here's why I'm asking this. Because I feel like in the marathon, I ran one without a pack. Didn't feel like I needed a pack. And granted, there's tons of water stations, Gatorade, all those stations throughout the whole marathon, and there are aid stations at 50Ks. So, would I need a pack? Why would I need one?
Yeah, that's great.
Or can you not have one? Like that's
We're seeing a rise in packs in road marathons, though.
I have seen a couple, but for the majority of people, they don't wear them. So you always say it's only 5 or 6 more miles. Like, so do I need a pack?
Yeah, I think depending on your location, so anywhere else in the world, so all of our international runners, it's required for most of their races. They will have required gear that you carry in that pack. The United States is probably number one country in the world that the majority of our races do not have required gear, even for hundreds. 200s do, and that's wise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's wise, it's necessary, and for some people, it's a matter of keeping yourself from danger, harm,
sure,
and even
safety. Yeah.
So, and I say that because a lot of the 200s, their aid stations are 15 to 20 miles apart.
Right.
Okay. When you are transitioning into trail, unlike road, you don't have an aid station every hour unless you are doing the backyard ultra, which is, typically like a 4 mile loop, and then you hit back to start. That's your aid station. You are doing a track ultra. So every 400 meters at any time you can get,
Yep.
And then road ultras, which, a road 50K is going to run pretty similarly to just a marathon. And so they are going to have, those aren't super popular.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is generally speaking, for 50Ks, you will see an aid station every 6 to 8 miles.
Okay.
Now, and that's on average. Some of them might have them every 4, every 5, but I'd say on average, expect every 6 to 8 miles.
Okay.
Now, you have to, if you see that, you can't just stop at, oh, cool, every 6 to 8 miles. You then need to very quickly check how much climbing is in that race. Because if it's a 50K with 10,000 feet of climbing and it's 6 to 8 miles before you see an aid station, for some people, that's 2 hours before they see an aid station.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
If they're going a 15-minute per mile pace, and we don't know, it could be anywhere on that course. Like, let's say that there was an aid station in the valley and the next aid station's at the top of the mountain, and it can take you an hour and a half, 2 hours to climb that.
Okay.
And so that's wearing a pack is essential to how you move, to the terrain, to the time of year, and how many aid stations are on the course.
So the distance between aid stations is part of it. The climbing within that obviously makes it longer in terms of time. So my next question, because I'm asking these questions because I literally don't know the answers. What goes in the pack? Are you just doing water and like some like gels or something, bars that just to get you to the next aid station? Or are you trying to pack that whole thing for the whole race? Again, these are like off the cuff, ignorant questions I don't know the answers to, but
they're great questions because I had all these same questions when I started.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And there wasn't a lot of those answers out there for me. So my first few ultras were all learning. I had no idea. But I think that, again, once you choose your race, that's going to help you craft your needs as an individual. And we are all different. And I would just say, like, off the top of my head, depending on how frequent you see an aid station, sometimes you don't need a pack at all. There's a lot of really cool waist packs out there, or waist belts, like even like a flip belt. I mean, man, you could run with 2 handheld water bottles and wear a cool like flip belt or some type of waist belt, and you could stick in a bunch of gels. You could stick in, little thing of chapstick, little thing of sunscreen, of lube, and, even your cell phone. And like, you're just running with 2 bottles in your hands.
Yeah.
You see that a lot in 50Ks. 50Ks, because you don't typically expect, especially if a 50K starts, let's say at 6 a.m., you don't typically expect to do headlamp. You're not going to be there overnight, for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay. On average. Also, if the race allows a lot of drop bags, or let's say it's an out and back course, and so you can get to a drop bag like frequently, people are going to be dropping off gear. They don't really see a need to be weighed down by a pack. And that is kind of like one way that people see packs is like, it's just like this heavy piece. Now, if you are racing, you're trying to PR, there's a lot of benefit in a pack because you fly in and out of the aid stations. I know for me, when I'm racing, I choose the exact aid stations I'm going to stop at. So I already know before I'm going into a race, I'm not going to stop at probably half of the aid stations because I'm racing. Now, if your goal is just to finish a 50K, like, you actually should stop at the aid stations. Make sure you have what you need. Take care of blisters. Make sure you have enough water. Like, get used to the sport of ultra running. Like, enjoy it. Have fun. I always say, check your watch, but right before you go into that aid station, tell yourself, like, if you actually don't really have a medical problem or a blister, you need to change shoes, give yourself 60 to 90 seconds at most. Fill up your bottles, grab something to eat, thank the volunteers, and get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Because you want to keep, those cutoffs. And that's kind of where your pack is going to become a source of strategy that you get to construct. So that's another piece that I like to encourage people that are chasing cutoffs. I say, well, you should use a pack. Use a pack, and if you don't have to stop every single time and fill up water every single time, but you can carry it. So if you're carrying 2 liters of water and there's an aid station every 4 to 5 miles, think of all the time that you're going to save by taking out your bottles and undoing them and finding a volunteer and then chatting and or maybe like you are very specific about your food because you know what works. Man, think if there's 10 aid stations and you're able to get through those aid stations 2 minutes faster each time, wow, you've saved yourself 20 minutes in that race because you used your pack as a way to move faster. So yeah, at the minimum, what you're going to be carrying is at least a liter of water or half a liter of water, depending on where the aid stations are, how much climbing. You want to carry a few hundred calories of food. If depending on the time of year and where you're racing, packable jackets, windbreakers, those things weigh like nothing.
Yeah.
And you can get great packable jackets. They're so small. I'm a big believer in those no matter what. I don't care how hot it is. If you are in the mountains, you should always, always, always have a jacket. And part of that is like if you get lost, if something happens to you, it takes you longer to get to an aid station. A windbreaker, even at least, is a shield. It's a shield to the elements, to the sun. Even if it is hot, you have something to cover your body. Is very, very wise. And then I always have a very small, it's very light, some type of blister and medical, like little tiny, I have like a little Ziploc baggie, and I'll put a little bit, a couple Band-Aids in there. I'll put like a little container, like Squirrel's Nut Bottle makes some, like this little round container of like some type of lube that you can use on your feet or in between your thighs, like wherever you need it. And then maybe a few salt tabs are in there, maybe a nausea tab, just a little tiny thing. And that's kind of like your little safety blanket, maybe a few ginger, and peppermint chews are in there if you have a bad stomach. So and that's what long runs are for. You can kind of learn about yourself. Like, yeah, I definitely need to re-lube, or I need like chapstick, or like, no matter what, my stomach just goes south after 4 hours. So you have a little something, and that's not heavy at all. And you can get that like down pretty light. I'd say those are the key things. Cell phones, that the topic of cell phones in 50Ks, I think there's two big positives to it. If you are like I said earlier, you're on your way to Colorado, you've never been there before, you really want to run the Colorado trails. You know what? I take the pictures as you move along.
You need those selfies.
You need it.
Yep.
And if obviously we want to make sure that everyone around us is enjoying their race as well. And so, we're not standing in the middle of the course, taking pictures or anything like that. But you know what? Like bringing it for just the purpose of grabbing a couple pictures, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And there have been times where, sometimes that cell phone is going to help someone that is gotten themselves into a bad situation, whether it's an injury or they gotten lost. I know when we were doing Project Mammoth, Life 360 app was so crucial on my phone. Everyone could see where I was. Whoever was in our Life 360 circle could see where I was. So I'm a fan of bringing them just for that. A lot of races now, they will have like a hotline, a safety number, like something that sometimes even the race directors like put my number in your phone. It's a way that they can locate you, account for you. So yeah, that's definitely something that I see a lot of. That's part of the pack setup.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that answers a lot of my questions about that pack thing.
When you go into the longer distances, that pack gets a little bit heavier.
Oh, I've seen, Sal. I've crewed you many a time in those 200s. You pack half your house in that thing. Okay, the next thing I have on my mind would be the shoes. So I am a Pegasus guy.
Yeah.
When I run my 3-mile loop.
Yeah.
Is that something I'm wearing on a 50K trail run?
Well, first of all, although I have been, I've been a Nike athlete for over a decade now, I believe that there isn't one shoe that fits everyone. Not at all. Yeah. I'll never ever claim that. Sure. It's just our anatomy, how we move, what our running gait is like. Some people are more neutral, stable, wide feet, narrow feet. I mean, we all have different needs with shoe. You need to find a shoe that works best for you, that feels good. And you need to be changing out that shoe every 3 to 4 months. I mean, shoes, they got that breakdown. And that's if you're training consistently. Now, when it comes to a trail specific shoe, I'm also a little sensitive to that too, because if you have a shoe that you're training in on the road and you're always running on the road, and now you have to go buy trail shoes, and then you suddenly your shoe collection is growing. Is there a shoe out there? I always like to suggest a shoe that can do both.
Yeah.
And there is a trail peg. The Trail Pegasus is great on road and trail. And there are other brands, okay? I don't wear other brands, so I don't know exactly what those shoes are. And listener, you can say what your favorite shoes are in the comments. I'd love to hear. A shoe that can perform on road and trail has always been why I've chosen a shoe. So the Wild Horse shoe and the Trail Peg, the Wild Horse, and we're kind of still working out the Wild Horse 10 right now. I've been trialing it for like the last year and a half, but that is why I chose that shoe, because I could run miles on the road and it performed great on the trail. Now you want to kind of zero in on terrain. And so if you are going to spend most of the year training for a one race, take a look at the terrain. Is it really technical? Is it really rocky? Is it, East Coast trails and West Coast trails, they are different. So on the East Coast, you're going to get more roots, rocks. They also have moss, a lot of water, especially if you're running like in the Blue Ridge Mountains and, in the area like around North Carolina. Like you want a shoe that has good grip.
Yeah. You
want a shoe that's like sturdy and is durable. Is the Trail Pegasus the best shoe for that? I don't think so. So I think you have to pick a shoe that's really going to serve you well in the race that you're training for. Now the Zagama, that one also feels good on the road, and it has Vibram on the bottom of it. So that one would be great on East Coast trails because it's sticky, it's got good grip. And because it's a little bit beefier, a little bit more cushion, it's going to feel good as you're going over rocks and roots and things like that. Yeah. So when people are choosing trails, it's kind of got to fit the terrain that you're training on. You also want it to do well on the terrain that you are racing.
All right. Well, you didn't say Crocs, so that's that's good. I'm glad that's not an option.
I was trying to work that in, and then I realized you don't even own a pair of Crocs. I don't think you ever have. Have you even tried on a pair of Crocs?
I've never tried them on either, actually, no.
They have been popular
for a long time.
Since before we had kids.
Yeah.
And when we had kids, I remember everyone put their kids in they had the little baby Crocs, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I got the cheap knockoff ones from Walmart for Isaiah and Mackenzie. I remember that.
They're very practical.
They're so practical.
Especially like going to the beach and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Sally. Thank you for answering not only mine, but a lot of people out there had these questions too. So I felt that was helpful.
Well, I'm glad you asked them. I think the only natural curiosity that I have is what race in 2025 will you be signing up for?
I'm just saying I am not convinced that I am ready for 50K, but having conversations like this helps me understand it a little bit better and what I would be getting myself into.
It would be so fun to, if you would let me train you for a 50K. I think you would really like it. Yeah. One of the ones that I like, my friend Molly put it on for years, but I think it's now a part of the John Wayne Grit series. It's in El Moro in the Laguna Canyons.
Local.
Yeah, the 50K. That's actually so I personally do not race 50Ks. None of my career has been 50Ks. I've always used them as training races, though. They've been great ways to train for races. It's funny because I used to kind of go back and forth. I've always done well in them.
Yeah.
So that race, the race course is only like 20 minutes away from us, but it's pretty solid. You get like 5,000 to 6,000 feet of climbing over the course of the 50K. It's a smaller race setting. A lot of the locals run it. You got a lot of people from San Diego, Orange County, and LA that will come and run it. Very, very friendly community. I know all those trails like the back of my hand. That's definitely a race. I think the few times that I raced it, I don't think I ever wore a pack, if I remember right. I think I always just did like a handheld
bottles.
But I knew her, like I would help mark the court. Like I knew how the race ran. Like I knew where all the aid stations were, and I knew
some inside info.
Well, you could kind of time everything. Okay, this section will take me this long, and do I need and that is always an advantage. You can get on the course and really get to know it. And courses that have been around for a long time. So that's another thing too. When people are trying to determine which race to choose, which is very important. I like to encourage, if you're stepping into a new distance, just choose a race that's actually been around for a while, because it is helpful to read the reviews and kind of have that trust and confidence that aid stations will be where they said they are.
Yeah.
Right. The volunteers are going to be there. I remember a race. I'm not going to say what the title is because I think it is still around, but it was newer at the time. And I won the race. It was a 50-mile race, but it was over 100 degrees and there was not an aid station where it was supposed to be. And that was brutal. That was very, very brutal. To have to wait, have no water and know, oh my gosh, I have like 8 more miles I have to run, and it's so hot. But it was a new race at the time. So when a race is new, they're still figuring things out. I remember I did another one that it didn't know until the middle of the race. It didn't have permitting for one of the sections. And so it like in the race, we were getting rerouted, like literally during the race. And so, so that would be a strong consideration that you need to take. And then once you become more comfortable just in ultras and how you use gear and like just how you respond just to the distances and the training and the nutrition and all that, like you just start to like not be so dependent on whether or not an aid station is going to be there. Or there's markings. Like you just start to know, okay, I'm going to download the map on my watch and I'm going to navigate that way. I'm going to carry a pack with everything in it because I know that even if the aid station is there, if they don't run around and stuff, I'm good. I'm good to go. So the race course in El Morro is an awesome 50K. I mean, you've hiked those trails for years, with our kids, and you get views of the ocean. There's some steep climbs. It's a beautiful course. Yeah. But I think it would be fun. It would be so fun. I mean, I'd run it with you.
Look at you over there thinking it'd be fun if I did it. Come on.
It would. I actually really do think that I think you'd enjoy it more than the road marathon.
Yeah, you think?
I do. And this is why they're like ultra running, the sport of ultra running. This isn't like a pitch that you need to do it, but like, I think that ultra running just as a whole, trail running as a whole, it's just like it's a fun adventure.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
So
that's what I've heard.
Get out there, people.
Get out there.
And if you are looking for a training plan, this is a nice little pitch for my app. I have an awesome 50K program in there. It does blend together some strength training, and I think we just need to start posting these more. But we are just repeatedly gotten so many testimonies about people that have used that plan. They've achieved their goal. They've had PRs. Yeah. They've used it over and over again. So you can download my app. The link is in the title of this show, and you can check out that 50K plan for yourself. But Eddie, I think for the most part, the listeners and myself will be excitedly awaiting which 50K that you're going to choose. And listeners, if you have an idea for him, if you think he needs to travel to another state, you tell us where we should travel. Maybe we need to do a runcation somewhere, Eddie. I'll run it with you. I will. It would be so fun to do a 50K with you. But
no, because then you'll just like talk to me the whole time. And I don't want to hear
this
that.
This is true.
We
will live podcast the entire thing. No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't do like cameras and stuff like that. I'd probably take some pictures of you in the aid station, but I would love to adventure with you for 31 miles. And listeners, send in, comment, if you're on YouTube or even within this podcast, let us know your favorite 50K and where Eddie should run his first. And
I'd love to hear their favorite 50Ks, but I'm not about like trying to get coaxed into going to one of them.
He's almost there, guys. He's on the verge.
I'm not.
He's on the verge.
Have some questions about him. All right. All right, Sal, take us out. Give us the good word.
The good word today is that Eddie and I are so happy that you showed up.
Yeah,
we are glad that you are here. We really hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. And whether your week started off crummy, frustrating, or just plain hard, we want you to know that we are right alongside you, working through all of those seasons too. You know, our days, they ebb and flow, but every day is a new day. Every day is a new day to ask ourselves, was I better today? Mm-hmm. Every day is a new day. We get to show up and do the work. Those are our choices. And I've really been leaning into the life is 10% of what happens and 90% of how we react to it.
Yep.
And that's really powerful.
Yeah, it is.
And so I just want to encourage you with that too. So I just encourage you to choose a path that's strong, love big, love wide. Remember that you are loved, and know that Eddie and I are rooting for you in all you do. And we hope that you keep choosing strong in all you do.